Guys, Shay Newton here with Financial Journey. I have been away for a couple weeks. I had a conference last week in Denver, which was great. And then I was with family the week before, but I'm back now. So my conference was at Denver, and my husband and I took the last day and a half of the week and went to check out Colorado Springs, and we went to Garden of the Gods. We stayed at this great little place that has a castle, and they have tons of hiking trails. So we did that. I think we hiked like 10 miles one day. It was crazy. My feet are killing me still. And then we went to Pikes Peak on our way back to the airport, which is really scary. I'm typically not afraid of heights, but I almost had a panic attack on the way up. Coming down was fine, but going up was really scary, and it's 20 miles up. I would have rather hiked it up than driven. So anyway, back now. Today we're talking about the IRS and their crackdown on alternative assets within IRAs and Roth IRAs. And so really, what brought light to all of this is Peter Thiel, who was the founder of PayPal. And ProPublica wrote this article on it. That's a great article. You should go check it out. I'll put the link in the comments. But he amassed $5 billion in his Roth IRA. So don't forget, once you put money in a Roth IRA and you leave it there till you're 59 and a half, like you only paid tax on that contribution. You don't pay tax on any of the growth, earnings, all of that stuff. And when you take it out, it's completely tax-free. Okay, so $5 billion. That's a lot of tax revenue. So this is why they're cracking down on it. But he's a wealthy person, and there's Roth limits. So how did that happen? Well, he founded PayPal. Okay, and then typically when you're an executive of a company, you have a low salary and you get paid in, stock grants, stock options, things like that. So when he contributed these PayPal shares to his Roth IRA, the limit was $2,000 that you could put in for the year, and you had to be making less than $110,000 in income. So he got 1.7 million shares of PayPal, and he bought them at a tenth of a penny. So that's how he was able to get all those shares in there, because they were, so cheap. So anyway, they went public and he got a ton of money from it. He was able to sell within his Roth IRA. Then he could, buy other things like Facebook, things like that. So that's how he was able to, get all this money and amass $5 billion into a Roth IRA. So he was an early adopter of this strategy, but many wealthy people have taken advantage of this since. So you may have noticed that after your taxes are done, after April 15th, you get this form called 5498. All right. And everybody's like, oh my gosh, I just got this form. I need to include it on my taxes, but I've already filed them. But that's not the case. It's actually for informational purposes only. Okay. And that is showing the IRS contributions, making sure you're taking your required minimum distributions and balances. So that's how they're seeing now, like, oh my gosh, $5 billion in a Roth IRA. Look at all this tax money that we could have had that we don't. So that's how that's happening with the 5498s. So they are now trying to crack down on this. Okay. And there is a proposal out right now. I think it's the American Family Plan. It's in writing, hasn't been passed yet. But what they're saying is if you've got $10 million or more in your Roth IRA and you make either $400,000 in income for single or $450,000 for married filing joint, they're going to start forcing distributions out of these accounts because they got to get the money in a system and start collecting tax revenue. So there's a great article by ProPublica, and you should read it. It's got lots of information in there. But one really cool thing that they have is there's like a little timeline on the side, and it shows if you'd invested, $1,700 in the S&P 500 versus, this stock and the explosion of it. It compares the balances all through the time. So really neat. Go check it out. And if you have $10 million or more in your Roth IRA, then you might be subject to some distributions from that soon. So anyway, this is Shay. Happy Tuesday, and I will see you guys again next week.